If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 51, An Unforgettable Night. Outside the hotel where Kenzo was staying, he parked his car and handed the keys to the valet before proceeding with Tuka, who was a bit tipsy. "My father will kill me if he finds out I let you drink tonight." Kenzo held Tuka's hand, and together they walked towards the building. "Where do you get so much money? Don't tell me you steal from the poor and defenseless." Tuka joked playfully as her right hand held Kenzo's waist tightly, as if afraid he might slip away. "No need to steal, with my great qualities, I can seduce beautiful older ladies who would be willing to give me their money for accompanying them for a night." Kenzo made a clever joke, returning Tuka's banter. Upon entering the elevator, they reached the most luxurious floor Kenzo could find, and in the distance, a pool caught Tuka's eye. Without hesitation, she kicked off her shoes and ran towards it. "Can we go in? Didn't you want it to be unique and charming?" Kenzo took off his coat and most of his upper garments. "Can we?" Tuka couldn't believe it. Not caring at all, Tuka began to remove her coat, stockings, skirt and jumped into the crystal clear water. On the other hand, Kenzo sat near the entrance, dipping only his feet. "This is amazing. How does the water feel?" Kenzo looked at Tuka, who had submerged herself in the pool illuminated by soft blue lights. Her beautiful body in the water came into his field of vision, leaving Kenzo very surprised. In any case, she had already accepted Kenzo as more than just her boyfriend, and since that night they had together, there was nothing more wonderful than the union between a man and a woman when both are attracted to each other, so he felt no shame. Tuka had remembered all those events since she and Kenzo met, and inexplicably falling in love with him because of the way he took care of her. She had never felt this way before, so she slowly walked towards where Kenzo was. With his eyes fixed on her, Kenzo looked at her directly with eyes full of desire. To his gaze, that was a very perfect body. He didn't lose interest in other women, but when he saw Tuka thinking only of things full of passionate thoughts. That beautiful and slender waist, her body filled in all the right proportions, was something that made him not want anything more from this woman. Kenzo, who was sitting at the edge of the pool, jumped and submerged himself next to Tuka. Right now, he was starting to feel more and more attracted to his charming girlfriend. Besides that passionate night, he hadn't touched another woman because he was committed to his new relationship with Tuka. How could he restrain his desires on such a special occasion? Tuka walked slowly towards Kenzo and held him by the hands, slowly dragging him into the pool without saying a word. "Do you want me to give you a massage?" Tuka circled Kenzo's body, looking at his back marked by large muscles with a deep blush on her face. Her somewhat chilly small hands moved across Kenzo's back, feeling each of his hard muscles filled with explosive power. After pressing them for a while, she moved forward and pressed her chest against Kenzo's firm back. Her hand slid subtly to his muscular chest. "Kenzo, I'll help you see an ideal world," Tuka whispered, and a passionate breath brushed Kenzo's ear. If Kenzo didn't do anything after this, he would seriously doubt his sexual orientation. Immediately, he turned around, held Tuka's body by her waist, and gave her a deep kiss without uttering a word. Kenzo's large hands caressed Tuka's hips and slowly slid down her slender back. "Ah!" Tuka moaned softly and responded passionately to the kiss, her delicate hands also caressed Kenzo's back. As pairs of lips and two tongues entwined for a while, Kenzo let her go and looked at Tuka's flushed complexion. After that, Tuka's hazy eyes shone with a desire gleam, while her thin, red, water-moistened lips seemed extremely seductive to Kenzo. Seeing this, Kenzo couldn't hold back and submerged himself into Tuka's lovely neck. Right in that delicate spot, he left rosy marks. The enchanting body of this woman completely immersed him in an exhilarating sensation that ran through his entire being. His lips slid from her neck to the breasts hidden beneath the cold water surrounding their bodies. Regardless, Kenzo's head plunged into the water, delicately sucking on that precious breast while his skillful tongue surrounded it. In the process of his bold movements, Tuka let out moans, but she herself dared not believe that she was making such obscene sounds, which under normal circumstances would have left her feeling very embarrassed. Kenzo slid back and forth, kissing her, his hands touched those cute hips, and his movements flowed like natural actions. Lifting Tuka's body slightly upward, he began kissing her belly button, then his gaze focused on the treasure any man would ever wish to explore. Feeling Kenzo's lips on her most intimate parts, Tuka didn't react until she felt something warm flowing inside her, so she exclaimed in embarrassment. "No, no. Ah!" Right after exclaiming, her legs gave way, and she submerged into the water. Chapter 52, An Unforgettable Night, 2. Kenzo pulled Tuka out of the water and walked towards a long couch. Tuka tightly embraced Kenzo's neck and shyly buried her head in his chest, not daring to look directly at him. Will she be his woman from now on? Tuka was very nervous. Perhaps the first time could be considered a mistake or an impulse she might regret. However, Kenzo's attitude indicated that he indeed considered her his girlfriend. Kenzo laid Tuka in the middle of the plush couch, but she refused to let go, no matter what. Hey, my tigress, what's wrong? Kenzo asked in a low voice. I'm very nervous, Tuka murmured with a trembling voice. That's normal, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. Don't you want to devour me tonight? Kenzo simply embraced Tuka, and his hands began to stroke her slender back to ease her nervousness. No, tonight, I'll devour you. Tuka said hastily. She wanted to experience what she had enjoyed that night, and today was a perfect situation, but she couldn't control her nervousness or figure out what she should do. Kenzo chuckled, and one of his hands began to caress Tuka's buttocks, and the other on her hip to reassure her. Slowly, Tuka's body felt much hotter, she occasionally let out soft moans. Hearing Tuka's seductive moans, which would drive anyone crazy, Kenzo's body heated up. His dear tigress, who acted tough in normal situations, was now releasing moans that drove him crazy. Ah, Kenzo! Tuka's voice trembled, feeling Kenzo's firmness touching her abdomen, her body trembled, and desire penetrated her bones. Tuka's flexible waist began to move from side to side, rubbing against Kenzo's body. Although this feeling was pleasant, Kenzo wanted more, so his instincts made his hand delve deeper into Tuka's secret space. Ah, Kenzo, wait! Tuka's weak hands held Kenzo's chest. Kenzo stopped, looked at her with his lustful eyes, and asked in a deep voice, what's wrong? Tuka struggled to free herself from Kenzo's embrace and stood up naked. Her short hair and flushed face emitted astonishing charm. Her healthy and wet body was seductive. Kenzo resisted the urge to put his hands on her again and love her senselessly all night. He wanted to know what Tuka wanted to do at this moment. Tuka's delicate face was flushed, and a faint layer of mist remained in her eyes, as bright as the starry sky. She looked at Kenzo in a daze and moved her feet slightly. Under Kenzo's astonished gaze, she straddled his waist. Kenzo, look at me. Tuka couldn't suppress her embarrassment, but her gaze bravely met Kenzo's, recalling her best friend's advice about being dominant in the relationship. Kenzo obediently looked at Tuka, suddenly noticing that his little girlfriend's eyes turned as red as blood, giving her a unique appearance. Can I bite you as many times as I want? Tuka asked in a seductive tone. Kenzo, who was mounted by Tuka, nodded in astonishment. Was she nervous just now? His little dragon began to harden even more due to excitement, and he wanted to start dominating this passionate battle. Do not move. Tuka grabbed Kenzo's arms and said flirtatiously. Looking at Kenzo's puzzled eyes, Tuka's face turned red and she said in a mosquito voice, I'll do it myself, you don't move. Kenzo was surprised. This girl wanted to do it herself? He also wanted to see what Tuka was going to do, so he held back her desire and let her do it. Tuka moved her hips back and Kenzo's big mate was exposed. Looking at that size, Tuka was secretly speechless and wondered if she had enjoyed such a thing on that occasion. Did she go completely crazy? Biting her lower lip, she remembered that she must be dominant and she held Kenzo's hot erection, stroking up and down that big dragon. After being subjected to such naughty movements, little Kenzo became ferocious. Tuka's pretty face blushed, she raised her hips a little, aiming little Kenzo in the right spot and she actually sat up without fear. Tuka only felt that the lower part of her body had been pierced by something warm and she moaned pleasantly without any shame. But in the process, she felt Kenzo's hands touching her hips. This strong and aggressive girl, was she really the Tuka she knew? Tuka leaned towards Kenzo and said softly, I love you. That sentence was like a spell for Kenzo. Her large hands soon began to caress the sensitive parts of Tuka's body and he whispered sweet words to her that he would never say in public or in the presence of anyone other than just Tuka. When he was with her, he felt that he could fearlessly release the vulnerable and warm side of her. Gradually Tuka began to move voraciously and naturally, avoiding herself more and more. The strong desire and pleasure coming from her lower body excited him greatly. After the initial discomfort, she who was lying on Kenzo's body began to synchronize with her movements. Along with Tuka's increased movement, her flirtatious moan echoed again. She closed her eyes tightly and her fragrant cheeks were tinted with a light blush, showing Kenzo something she had never done before. Tuka, bite me. Crack. Tuka fearlessly bit into Kenzo's strong shoulder, and the sweet taste of meat along with her blood made her feel much better. She suddenly hugged Kenzo tightly, and her white buttocks rose and fell madly. They were both completely lost in desire. As a man, how could Kenzo always be ridden by a woman? She growled and turned around to press against Tuka's body. Her arms wrapped around her slender waist and began to move quickly. Not long after, Tuka's entire body began to shake, and with loud moans, they both enjoyed something only the two of them could do. After an hour, Tuka collapses on Kenzo's chest with blood still on her lips. She didn't even have the strength to move her toes. The first time she didn't feel as good as she does now, which made her enjoy this magical desire again and again. Tuka, where did your grumpy attitude go? Kenzo asked Tuka as he caressed her back. You're a big idiot, let's go to sleep. Chapter 53, Nothing would change. Once they stabilize District 14, they must stay clear of any activity that compromises them. We will operate discreetly from now on, increasing surveillance while decreasing it in District 20 at the border with 14, as it now belongs to us. Kenzo smoked quietly as he gazed out the window, his expression cold and filled with conviction in his plan. If he wanted to succeed, he needed to take control of District 19 now and reduce the chances of any external enemies meddling in his affairs before prioritizing other matters. No matter what, no one must touch District 20, including those from the CCG. If they do, then we will have to completely eliminate the branch by exploiting its territory entirely. Kenzo couldn't let himself be influenced by anyone other than his main goal of uniting all districts. Even if Tuka told him they should live a life free from danger in a cafe where they believed they had adequate security, he disagreed. The security they needed was to have control over all districts and, eventually, the entire country. All control in my hands, that's the true goal before being happy. Kenzo never planned to lead a happy life until he secured his future. Someday, who knows, it might be discovered that he is half ghoul, so this discomfort had led him to this point, and he wouldn't give up. A few hours after Tuka woke up, Kenzo took her to the cafe. Just as he was about to enter, he felt a gaze, so he said to Tuka, "Go in first, it seems someone wants to talk to me." Tuka looked towards the street but didn't see anything, so she said, "Be careful." "Of course, I'm a very careful man." Kenzo nodded and let her in without showing much affection because now she was a vulnerability he didn't want anyone else to know about, that way, both of them would be protected. Having returned several days later, even without communicating with his father, who had only called him to let him know if he had a problem, Kenzo had a missed call from his sister, Ito. Outside Antihero Cafe, Kenzo called his sister, Ito. "Moshi Moshi. You finally deigned to call me, my dear brother. You must be a very busy man." Ito's voice came quickly through the intercom. "You can't even imagine how busy I am, sister. Why did you think of calling me? Don't tell me you want to resolve the last disastrous conversation we had." Kenzo showed no expression when he said this. It didn't really matter to him since this went deeper than both of them could control. Reconciliation. "Oh, are you still worried about that?" Ito couldn't help but laugh. "In that case, why did you call me?" Kenzo showed a bit of interest. "It's nothing. I worried because recently things in District 14 haven't been simple at all, and I feared you might get involved. I don't know how busy you are, but I'd like to know what you were doing in District 14. Ito asked in a somewhat peculiar manner. "I should have killed that bitch." Kenzo thought about Idari, who at that moment showed an expression that gave him the impression she recognized him. However, this would be known sooner or later, so it wasn't of much importance. Ito knew that her brother didn't like her investigating him, especially when things have been tense in their relationship lately. "Little sister, should I also advise you and tell you to stop playing the double life game? If you're going to worry about me in that way, I have no choice but to advise you to. Don't make me forcefully pull you out of all the dirt you're surrounded by, do you understand, sister?" Kenzo smiled faintly, and his charming words were imbued with other intentions. "I guess I'm not the only one who cares about their only family. I'm sorry for being inconsiderate. It's good that you know, but I want my other sister to meet who my boss is. You'll understand many things if you know him, don't you think?" Kenzo, who knew that his sister knew he belonged to the Three-Eyed Crow organization, finally told her. "If you want to know the world I'm seeking, you should meet him. He's also very interested in talking to my sister." Kenzo fell silent and then said, "You should understand me a bit, so why don't you be more tolerant like me and at least respect our old father? If we think about it, who do you think has suffered more because of our fate?" Ito remained silent for a while and then spoke again, "Little brother, stop talking nonsense. These things can't be discussed over the phone. So, do you want to meet? I'll treat you to a meal, don't you want to?" Kenzo knew who his sister was and what she possibly sought, but she was exposing herself to a world she couldn't control precisely, so the least he could do for her is protect her. "Forget it, you're a very busy man, so I don't want to bother you." Well, then, I'll hang up first." Kenzo believed that their meeting could be postponed, but then his sister said, "Wait, I am considering talking to your boss. Then I'll send you a message, it will be the point where you'll know about the meeting. Tell me when you have time, then we'll arrange a meeting. But the rest is not discussed over the phone, do you understand?" Kenzo asked while waiting for a response. "Yes, take care, little brother." Ito hung up without saying anything else. "Maybe she got angry," Kenzo murmured as he remembered what she had said about their father. After all, he didn't hate him, he was angry at not being able to understand him, so that was all. But Ito, his younger sister, seemed to have a worse understanding because Yoshimura never sought her out like he did for him. Hatred, love, sadness, and regret are buried deep in their hearts, but both use them differently. If that's the case, Kenzo, as the older sibling, should take that supposed small responsibility and resolve this issue himself as soon as possible. Chapter 54, Something is happening. "How can there be ghouls using quinquas as if they were umbrellas?" shouted an old man as his saliva splattered across the entire report table. According to the report from yesterday, July 30th, during the surprise raid to eliminate the ghoul group known as the 12 Monkeys, an unidentified group established direct communication, and that's when everyone decided to act. According to suspicions, both parties were about to discuss complete control of District 14, and for that reason, we wanted to initiate the incision as soon as possible. "That doesn't answer my damn question." An elderly man pounded the table forcefully, his eyes were filled with fury as he asked again, "How do ghouls have in their possession the best technology of ghoul investigators? They stole them." "What did you say?" "The ghouls stole the briefcases of ghoul investigators. They took care of defeating the investigators before they could use their quinquas, and when they woke up, all they saw was that their briefcases were stolen." The ghoul investigator in charge of District 14 had faced several attacks on the investigators in the district he oversees. "Are you saying that a well-prepared group of ghouls is stealing quinquas without us being able to do anything, and now we have armed ghouls who can stand up to special class investigators?" asked the elder in charge of CCG management. "That's basically what's happening. Don't the briefcases have trackers? The previous generation doesn't have trackers, so it's impossible to find the ones that were stolen at the moment. But that doesn't matter, ghouls are monkeys who can do nothing more than eat." A bespectacled man scorned ghouls coldly, paying little attention to this problem. "Mr. Tanaka, if we don't take ghouls seriously, we would be defeated miserably. We don't know what's happening in District 14, but the situation overnight is similar to District 20, where questionable peace currently reigns. Are you afraid of ghouls? You lead the District 14 branch, so you must do your job and find out what's happening. We must investigate thoroughly. It seems that what is happening in the district you manage is significant. Do you think I'm not doing it?" "Enough." At that moment, a thunderous voice was heard in the report room, so everyone fell silent. "For now, focus on following small traces. The ghouls in District 20 must be thoroughly investigated because that would give us clues about what is recently happening in District 14. "Yes, sir." Noah, who had followed the organization's instructions as promised, received the title of the 13th pillar with an SS class rating above average within the Three-Eyed Crow organization. In a short amount of time, 4 new pillars had risen to the skies within the organization, making it one of the strongest organizations in the nearby districts. Therefore, Viper, who was the most reliable and understood Kenzo's intentions in District 14 the best, stayed behind to handle things. "Boss, why did you agree to follow the Master Crow so easily?" asked a former subordinate of Noah, the ghoul with the title of Old Monkey. "I felt like I was in front of a real man who is willing to lead us to something better." Noah simply responded as he observed the physical training of humans who would be hired for the expanding bodyguard company in District 14. "Don't you think they might be suspicious of you because of that?" "They won't be. I'm an SS class ghoul, and they'll need extremely strong ghouls to dominate all the districts. I'm not a smart person, but as someone who has lived in the worst places touched by man, I can tell when to put my life in someone else's hands and when not to. At that moment, when the Master Crow said he was willing to give his life for his goal, I felt it for real. Noah's words caused the ghouls present to raise their eyebrows in surprise. A ghoul looked at Noah as if he was sharing his feelings and asked, "Are you willing to give your life for that goal?" Noah hadn't seen that question coming at all. Now that he was asked, he thought, how far am I willing to go with this? I originally came here just to see if the words the Master Crow told me are true, but I think I ended up more involved than I expected. Uniting all the districts is something that has never been achieved, but if, by some remote chance, it were to be achieved, how strong would they be? They would, for the first time, be heard as a united and communicative species. If that happens, he was sure that, like the Master Crow, he would be willing to go anywhere. He had seen how the Master Crow had stopped the CCG's Reaper, a ghoul investigator whom the most powerful ghouls had never before escaped from. And in return, Kenzo had emerged unscathed from that confrontation, considering it lasted only a few minutes. If Kenzo is as strong and determined as he claims to be, Noah was sure that the world as he knew it would change radically. If that's the case, he wanted to be by that man's side even if he had to follow his shadow. He didn't want to stand on the sidelines, he wasn't that kind of ghoul. I would be willing to do anything if I'm sure we will win. I would hide and not show my head if I know we are going to lose. In the end, Noah responded in the way he usually would. He didn't want to admit too quickly that he would go anywhere just for the cause that the Three-Eyed Crow organization is pursuing. Admitting that this dream plan has a chance is to believe in something that has never happened. He couldn't give that kind of image, or else he would actually present a kind of strange image to the others who still secretly watch him. Admit it, if there's one thing he had learned in this place, it's how organized and integrated all the ghouls present were in society. The things that had developed here were promising for all ghouls. Here is the future of humanity. After a few seconds of consideration, Noah asked, "Have you heard it, right? The crows will meet with Aogiri Tree, those terrorists who are in constant struggle with the CCG. Among you, which organization has more future? Between this place and the more turbulent districts, it would be obvious to say here," the ghoul next to Noah replied immediately, a smile forming on his face. "It's true, we've never had secure food for months without worrying about how to get it. Isn't that the best part?" At that moment, a voice interrupted their conversation. "Kieran, I thought you were killed," said Noah, who knew a bit about the ghoul in front of him. "I guess I'm stronger than usual and, better yet, smart enough to survive." Kieran boasted of having been chosen by Kenzo to become an SS-class ghoul with the help of many resources in this place. The next place to take would be District 19, do you think it will be easy? Noah asked with a certain doubt in his voice. "Weren't you indirectly related to those people?" "Not directly, as you say, but the chain of command is so random that it's hard to think about it." Chapter 55, Rize's Choices. Binge eater, gluttony. Due to her eating habits, Rize posed a threat to most ghouls in various districts of Tokyo before her disappearance in the steel beam incident, where, if not for the Master Crow's help, she would surely have died. Born into the Washuyo clan, Rize is the illegitimate daughter of the former CCG president, Tsuneyoshi Washu. She was a voracious and independent ghoul who acted as a femme fatale for those who fell victim to her charms. She was an enigmatic woman with many acquaintances who were left with a mysterious impression of her, and those who clashed with her rarely came out alive, except for Kazuichi Banjo, who found her self-reliance and strength attractive. Before meeting Kenzo, she was extremely selfish and gave little or no thought to the difficulties her compulsive eating habits caused other ghouls. She had no ambitions and wandered aimlessly to appease her boredom before being rescued by Kenzo's organization. At the moment, Rize sat in a large library beneath a beautiful hotel that had just been built under the influence of the Three-Eyed Crow organization. "How mysterious you are! I never thought you would come before me without your gracious mask. Even before we spoke, I never thought you were similar to that disgusting man who is my illegitimate father," said Rize, sipping coffee while looking at a book. In front of her was Kenzo, who looked at her with a mysterious expression. "I had to run to District 14 and bring it under my influence after his dogs wanted to bite my cats. A long story that I don't want to tell right now, but the important thing is that I'm here now, and it seems you've recovered." Kenzo showed no emotions in front of this woman who could bite him if he wasn't careful. "Are you worried about me?" "That's so charming of you," Rize replied as her smile widened. She wanted to see how Kenzo's thought process worked. Although she was thinking this way, in her heart, she wanted him to express more than what he hid behind his tired expression. Since we're both headed to the same destination, I'll listen to whatever you want to tell me before focusing on the complete conquest of Tokyo. Whom should I kill and whom should I spare? I know you know many things that I don't, so if you know something about my enemies that I don't, I'd like to hear it, Kenzo said calmly as he looked at Rize. Rize remained silent. Many of the things she knew she hadn't told anyone in this place, so for that reason, she knew perfectly well why Kenzo was here. But before she could formulate a sentence, he spoke again: love, revenge, fear, hunger. We all feel the same, and I truly desire something more. What should I do to make you unconditionally join me, Rize? Rize was surprised when she heard Kenzo ask her that question. She had thought she would be forced to choose between escaping or directly joining a man she didn't know well. Who would have thought that Kenzo would ask such a special kind of question? As Rize was pondering this, she didn't know what to answer, even though she had been in this place for more than a week. After a moment of silence, Rize made a gesture with her hand and said, "There's no need to ask it that way. Aren't you thinking of forcing me to answer?" It was also at that moment that Kenzo noticed she seemed to hesitate out of fear or distrust. He then thought to himself that he needed to make her understand his worldview. How could he, as a man, accept that someone would doubt his convictions and objectives? First of all, I want to get to know you better. How about we start with something small like that? If later you want me to answer your questions, I'll do it without any lies. Am I not a reliable man? No one has given you trouble since you came to this place, right? Kenzo reached for the coffee cup and drank calmly. He hadn't expected that the coffee served by his old man was much better, despite their differences. Rize had no disagreement. Although she had some doubts about Kenzo's words, Kenzo's response had made her feel comfortable with him. If he had instantly put her on the defensive, she would never have trusted him. It would be more interesting to exchange answers to our words. How about I start? Rize asked with an excited smile hidden beneath a charming one. Go ahead, you can ask me anything. Kenzo extended his hand and agreed. Rize, upon hearing this, nodded and asked, exactly what do you want to achieve with your organization, and how far are you willing to go? 2 questions in one, but I'll answer since I'm the most interested in your story. Kenzo sighed and said once again, my goal is to carve out a solid path for ghouls in the human world where they won't be persecuted and killed. Additionally, in that regard, ghouls wouldn't have to harm ordinary people. Wouldn't that lead us to discrimination if you achieve something with that foolish dream? Rize asked, questioning Kenzo's goal. That's inevitable, and we'll overcome it together. Have you even thought about it? Of course. Kenzo set down the coffee cup and said, but it wouldn't be different from what the world has witnessed throughout its history. A clear example would be racism. The world wouldn't be as it is today without the figures that fought against racism throughout history. Their sacrifice to defend the rights of excluded and mistreated people in favor of a just and egalitarian society has changed the course of humanity. After saying that, Kenzo pointed out, but there's still a long way to go. Irrational hatred against people of another race continues to emerge deep within human hearts, and it's inevitable. But even so, if we are united and strong, we will overcome it. Are you saying you'll be just like humans? Sacrifice yourself for the world you're seeking, is that what you want with your goal? Rize couldn't understand Kenzo. He definitely wasn't a man who would sacrifice himself for someone else, let alone for a goal he desires with so much emotion, as he demonstrates with his words. I have a dream. That's what Martin Luther said. That man was the voice of Afro-Americans suffering from racial discrimination for years. In 1955, he initiated a nonviolent protest against racial segregation following the arrest of a black woman, Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white man. He led a peaceful protest in Washington where he delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. In it, he expressed his desire for a future where whites and blacks could coexist as equals in harmony. In 1964, at the age of just 35, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. Only a year later, in the midst of the struggle for the equal rights of the black race, he was assassinated, Kenzo said as he lit a cigarette and looked at Rize with profound subtlety. Martin Luther King's speech is profoundly optimistic and hopeful. It proposes the ideal of a society based on the values of equality and brotherhood, with full recognition of the civil rights and individual freedoms of the African American community. But that is different from us ghouls, as we use violence to live, and an ideal world where we coexist is something that cannot exist. After answering the question in detail, he placed the cigarette in the ashtray and said, "We will use a different method, we will deceive humans and use them according to the laws of this deplorable country. First, we will play with their emotions. Then, we will make them question their decisions, and finally, we will offer them a healthy way out." "What if that doesn't work?" Rize asked, extremely fascinated to see if Kenzo's dream would triumph or shatter. Looking around, Kenzo smiled and said with a charmingly cold gaze, "Then we'll attack. At that moment, we will bite like we've never done before and take hold of this country by the throat. Terrorism would be the way out. I am not moral at all, so that is the path I would take. When humans are on the brink of despair within this country, we will create a hero, just as the CCG pretends to be." Satisfied with Kenzo's well-developed answer, Rize nodded and said, pointing at him with her pinky finger, "It's your turn, you can ask anything." "Who is your father?" Kenzo asked, throwing punches in the air as he anticipated a satisfactory answer. Rize is connected to most of the problems he has to face, so he assumed that could give him an answer to his question. But then he realized he stepped on a very delicate mine regarding Rize because that question triggered a subtle change in her smiling face. However, as she was willing to answer, she began to speak after a few minutes. "My non-legitimate biological father is Kikamura Washiyu, head of the Washiyu clan. That bastard had a fetish for raising illegitimate descendants, among them, and the ones I remember, are Kishao Arima, Kichimura Washiyu, Haruuhei, and myself, Rizkami Shiro," Rize said as her unconscious eyes turned crimson. That answer left Kenzo trembling with fury, his hands clenched, and he asked, "So, what relationship does he have with Organization V? Under the facade of kindness, he is a hypocrite. He himself is a ghoul while leading an anti-ghoul organization, and his ghoul investigators were probably seen as nothing more than pawns to him, as well as a source of food since the Washuas consume dead investigators." Rize had learned many things from those she encountered on her journey and understood things from her childhood that many would not notice. Chapter 56, Rize's Decision. What is the Washuyu clan? The Washuyu clan is the leading family that oversees the Ghoul Countermeasure Commission. They have been involved in its formation. Family members originally hail from the Midwest but gradually migrated to Japan at some point in their history. What is not publicly known is that, along the way, they frequently practiced cannibalism to obtain powerful RC cells from birth. This fact practically means they were born with Kakuja, similar to what happened to Kenzo when he awakened his Kagun. The above described information was internally known and learned by Kenzo from Rize's words. However, this was just beneath their dark facade, which was now more important than gold. The world knew that members of the Washuyu clan have hunted ghouls for over a century, exterminating them using specialized methods. In 1890, the Japanese government turned to the family for the creation of a governmental entity that could manage, investigate, and neutralize ghouls. Since then, its members have served as high-ranking officials within the CCG. They have made significant contributions to the CCG, among which the invention of the Quinqua by Yoshio Washuyu, in collaboration with Adam Jenner, is mentioned. It has been said that the Washuyu are known to be serious investigators who care deeply about results. It is difficult to accept that they are willing to sacrifice many people just to achieve their goal, viewing people as mere numbers. However, the only known exception is Yoshitoki Washuyu, who is said to be kind, gentle, and easy to get along with. Kenzo, who had been secretly investigating the V organization, never expected to learn the whole truth all at once. This was the only thing missing to fill his holy grail and begin his large-scale dominance. In this way, his smile became so significant that it was not easy to hide under the coldness of his face. "This is fascinating. As I had prepared, I can now understand that my tireless attempts to adapt my elite ghouls and consider the CCG as the true enemies is something that, by fate, turns out to be true. Ghouls are not our main enemies, it is enough to play my cards right to end those bastards sooner rather than later." Kenzo's words were filled with a luminous feeling, as if all his plans had suddenly aligned. That sadistic smile reappeared on his face, giving Rize a completely new sensation. "What are you thinking?" Rize asked, intrigued by Kenzo's actions. She did not expect this reaction from him. "The game is about to begin. Now then, I would like to ask you a question. Do you want to officially join my organization? As the first step in our dominance, we will immediately take District 19, which is causing us problems." Gilgamesh stood up, lit another cigarette, and walked in a direction followed by Rize. "What are we exactly going to do in the library?" Rize asked once again with a calm expression. "Who told you this is just a library? We're not apes, and we're not idiots either. I trust you, and since you're not seeking anything more than your own amusement, why don't we have fun together? Saying this, Kenzo moved a book from the back shelf, and the wall of books opened completely. Inside, enormous screens could be seen, where numerous people worked day and night collecting information, monitoring cameras, and, of course, investigating the movements of the CCG. Master Crow, we have serious problems with Quinqua collection across the districts. At that moment, Kazuma, wearing a pair of glasses, appeared in front of Kenzo and bowed respectfully. What is the problem? Kenzo walked towards the top of the chain of command, and Rize, like a curious butterfly, walked through the different workstations, discovering that most of them were humans, something that didn't match what they were here. The Quinquas are being monitored by very powerful GPS that, through a map, have complete surveillance of them. One of our newly installed factories received a police raid. Fortunately, there were no ghouls present, and the ghoul staff at this facility was evacuated. Kazuma was a smart man, he could figure out in a small fraction of time that the Quinquas they had been stealing now had GPS, and only after the CCG made a move with one of their safe zones. They took very little time to notice. Kenzo murmured as he looked at the images on the big screen. CCG investigators were fools, they would have gotten more if instead of raiding the place, they had waited. They are certainly fools to think that all the workers inside were ghouls. Kazuma scorned the CCG worms and smiled triumphantly, knowing something he didn't know until recently. For now, suspend the Quinqua capture. We need to know where and how to retrieve those Quinquas from the briefcases before resuming the thefts. In addition to that, there will be a meeting of the High Command, Kenzo said as he pointed to his watch. Will you call everyone? Kazuma asked with a serious expression, such an unexpected meeting had never arisen before. I want everyone who is not on important duty. For example, Viper is currently controlling District 14, so it would be a hassle to call him. We'll inform him later about what's happening, so refrain from that for now. Kenzo turned his gaze to Rize and introduced her. This is Kazuma, one of the pillars of our organization and the head of investigations. Haha, thanks for the compliment. You must be Miss Rize, so as an SS class ghoul, you'll be important for the organization. Kazuma smiled very kindly, but in the depths of his eyes, there was a watchful look. Rize noticed this but didn't care. She would have seriously doubted how this place works if they hadn't doubted her from the beginning. But regardless, she smiled and said, I'm very confused about how your organization works, so I would like to know more about this place and especially why there are humans here. Oh, that? Haha. Ghouls like us mostly don't have the capabilities to acquire the knowledge that humans have in their hands because we spend most of our time surviving. In this way, we offer work in exchange for a high salary and the protection of our members towards their families, Kazuma said as he adjusted the glasses in front of his eyes. Aren't you afraid of being betrayed? Rize asked a somewhat unsettling but sensible question. Kenzo on the side smiled and said, they won't do something like that. Before they joined us, each one made a wish, and it was granted to the letter. Their gratitude is genuine, but that's not our only trust insurance. What forges us is the blood. The blood? Rize frowned. Yes, the blood. How to put it? A part of me is inside them, my blood flows through their veins, monitoring completely their desires, intentions, heart rate, and many more things. When they become aware of betrayal, they would die immediately because my blood would crush their hearts completely. Kazuma smiled and said, an infallible method that has worked for us so far, but very few times has it come into use. Well, Kazuma, inform Rize about our activities while I prepare for the meeting with the High Command, Kenzo said goodbye as he had to organize his thoughts. Chapter 57, The Unexpected Meeting. Black Moon Hospital. At the top of the main building, about 12 people were gathered, plus an additional person standing by the window, looking out into the passage. Those seated in silence were the pillars. 12 out of the 14 in the organization were present at this moment, waiting for the Master Crow to speak. Among them, number 1 entered later with a thick folder for each of the pillars of the organization. After handing them out to everyone present, he walked to the side. He was the only one with the authority to be present at this meeting because he would be the future number 1 pillar of the organization. When everyone received the folders with the files, they all began to review them briefly, but the more they read, the more impressed they were. Kazuma was one of the most impressed. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The V organization, the CCG, and possibly other organizations are led by the Washuyu family. The Washuyu clan is the main family that leads the Ghoul Countermeasures Commission, they have been involved in its formation. How is it that they are ghouls, and what is the significance of why they hunt ghouls? How the hell is this possible? Haha, we're really in deep shit. Barbossa took out his small bottle of whiskey and drank several sips without caring about where he was. Shinji, on the side in school uniform, frowned, looked around, and pointed. In 1890, the Japanese government turned to the family for the creation of a governmental entity that could manage, investigate, and neutralize ghouls. Since then, its members have served as high-ranking officers within the CCG. Forget your damn school knowledge for a moment, kid, we're dealing with something much more serious than a history class. Barbossa scolded Shinji again as if it were a habit. You old alcoholic, the real issue is your damn addiction to alcohol. The smell is so strong that it nauseates even those who drink frequently, you should drink it and not use it as perfume. Shinji pointed at Barbossa and repudiated him forcefully. Kazuma adjusted his eyebrows and spoke, ignoring the argument. The Washuyu clan has made significant contributions to the CCG, among which the invention of the Quinqua by Yoshio Washuyu, in collaboration with Adam Jenner. Teizo, the man with dead fish eyes, smiled and said, so, should we destroy the CCG? Of course not. Are you an idiot or still half asleep? There's no need to touch the puppet but to destroy its puppeteer. Isn't that more exciting? Rize, the largest man present, got excited because he would return to the fighting business as he was involved. Destroying the Washuyu clan is very complicated, especially when the leader of that family is the most powerful ghoul they have ever faced individually. At that moment, Rize interrupted the conversation with her charming voice. Only then did everyone direct a series of very intriguing looks at her. Among all of them, indifference was the most present thing that truly intrigued her. Barbossa, like the rabid dog he is, replied, Miss Glutton, are you aware that every ghoul in this room is so powerful that they can dominate a district on their own? Regardless, do you know that I plan to tear each of your limbs into pieces if you underestimate our strength again? Rize smiled as if she expected that to happen and said, what a surprise. I thought you all acted with much more intelligence than this. Even I wouldn't dare to face that old demon. I'm just giving you some good advice, Rize said, maintaining her smile. Rize on the side remarked, well, I'd like to face him, but I doubt he's stronger than our Master Crow. Even the Ghoul Reaper couldn't leave a scratch on him. What could that bag of bones do? You should have a bit more common sense, warned Shinji as the tone of the conversation grew more intense. But right at that moment, Kenzo walked to his seat, and everyone engaged in conversations fell silent instantly. This not only demonstrated their loyalty but also the respect they had for him, going beyond mere ideas or personal desires. Now that you've finished your discussions, I'd like to outline the plans we'll have from now on. Kenzo pressed a button, and the glass table in the middle of the room displayed all the districts of Tokyo. He explained, our next plans will be to take districts 19 and 15 respectively. This will give us a path to a place filled with negotiations outside the city and, of course, more control over this city. Are we starting the conquest now? Kazuma hadn't anticipated it happening so quickly, so he asked once more, filled with mysterious speculations. We'll take those districts before the meeting with the Aogiri tree. I know with the new ghouls in our ranks, we're on the edge, but we need to expand before the CCG realizes that District 14 is quiet, just like District 29. Kenzo lit a cigarette and watched the smoke rise slowly but steadily. Will we form an alliance with the psychopaths from the Aogiri tree? Kazuma disagreed, but he couldn't express those words directly. An alliance. Kenzo thought for a moment and said, now that we know the truth, we can't waste time on ghouls, so we must quickly move on to the complete conquest plan and have the possibility of interaction with humans according to the plan. Everyone was aware that things had sped up, but that was the only way they could stay one step ahead of the CCG without them realizing. By the time they die, the entire city would be under their command. So, I suggest we've found the easiest way to take control of the Aogiri tree. Their strength is not something we should be surprised by, but their numbers are. Kazuma believed they could eliminate ghouls who didn't adhere to their rules just as they did with intruders. This idea was accepted, and the plans that would be executed, in addition to taking control of the aforementioned districts, were meticulously planned before the organization decided to take a step further. Chapter 58, The Crow's Bite. District 19. God, things have been so chaotic lately. How can I keep my wife calm when many of the ghoul attacks in the area are concentrated during my shift? I should consider transferring to another shift or location, the stress is killing me, said a Ghoul investigator as he walked through the well-lit streets of District 19 in a populated area. His companion, a Class A investigator, subtly smiled and murmured, "Come on, as long as I'm your partner, you should tell your wife there's nothing to worry about. If things go south, I'll have your back as I always have." Haha, don't be arrogant. Even if you're a special class investigator, there won't be a difference with those monsters. By the way, don't you think everything has been quiet today? Don't talk nonsense, maybe there aren't many ghouls in our area. Before his words could finish, a man ran out from the end of the alley, screaming for his life. "Help! Stop right there, don't move!" shouted a Ghoul investigator, stopping the approaching figure threateningly. This Ghoul investigator's attitude was natural, they didn't know if it was an enemy or a monster disguised as a civilian to deceive and kill them. These tactics were a bit dangerous, but they expected them in their training, so they didn't fall for these kinds of dangerous games. "What are you saying? I'm human. There are several ghouls fighting right over there. I don't know what the hell is going on, but we need to get out of here. If those monsters catch up to us, we'll be killed." The man wanted to keep running but was stopped by the Ghoul investigator, so he pulled out a candy with planned wrapping and tossed it to the human. "What's this? I want you to try it and tell me what it tastes like. If you can't answer that question, then we can't trust you," said the Ghoul investigator in a vigilant tone. Since things started getting more intense in District 14, in District 19, they had implemented new methods to avoid falling into traps that were too easy to interpret. Their hero complex was suppressed by their desire to keep living and eliminating ghouls. Although they take care of humans, they must take care of themselves first to continue eliminating enemies. This is undoubtedly a closer approach to survival. If they don't do it this way, they'll likely die from a senseless trap they could have escaped from. "Are you freaking kidding me?" The man who received the candy, instead of panicking, frowned and asked angrily. Were these CCG investigators protecting citizens? Why are they treating him as if he were the criminal to be eliminated? It makes no sense. "Do it now!" The Ghoul investigator shouted while his companion checked the surroundings, but at that moment, a liquid and thick drop fell on his cheek. The Ghoul investigator touched his cheek, and the first thing he saw was a reddish tint, it was blood. Up! When he looked up at the sky, the Ghoul investigator froze completely. Impossible! Above them, on the buildings, there were at least 20 figures covered in black trench coats and crow masks. Some of them had hidden their kaguns, and others held gunpowder weapons in their hands. "Dear Ghoul investigators, it would be very helpful if you drop your weapons and surrender without showing resistance. As a token of gratitude, we won't kill you, just take your quinquas." And obviously that human who knows much more than he should have heard, said one of the ghouls while his kagun twisted behind his back, releasing a huge burst of blood from his back. "In your dreams, you damn beasts." Although death was the only path left for them, none of the Ghoul investigators wanted to surrender in this situation. They couldn't do it, so by pressing a button, their quinquas were released, and both established a distance from the ghouls over their heads. "We're going to die," said the man who had just been running while holding his head, gripped by panic. "No, we won't, Satsuke. Take that man and run when you can. I won't leave you here, not with so many ghouls waiting for us," Satsuke said as he pressed a special button to request reinforcements. "There's no choice, it seems that man knows something about what happened ahead. Whatever it is, we must keep him alive before reinforcements arrive." But... boom! 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 How dare they speak that way when we're right above their heads? The Ghoul gave the order to throw several smoke grenades at the Ghoul investigators who weren't wearing gas protection. Cough! 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 Wonderful! Would they ever think a group of ghouls would eliminate 2 prestigious investigators? "Don't worry, we won't kill them because we don't usually do that. But if you allow it, we'll take your quinquas," said the Ghoul in perfect condition while the CCG investigators had fallen to their knees unable to breathe properly. The perfect way to eliminate weak humans is by using their own weapons. Who would have thought it would be so simple to be a bit smarter when facing them? Asked the Ghoul as his kagun moved at the speed of lightning, penetrating the left shoulder of one of the Ghoul investigators. "Don't underestimate us," Satsuke murmured while moving his quinqua with the last breaths of strength, but it was stopped by the Ghoul's kagun in front of him. Damn it! When the 3 targets were neutralized, the ghouls who were watching descended and began to clean the scene. One of them picked up the quinquas of the CCG investigators and asked, "What should we do with these humans? Let's leave them alive. The Master Crow's plan goes beyond just conquering the districts. Soon, we will attack a maximum security prison to obtain the bodies of the prisoners. I suppose that will ease the high consumption of meat that the organization must now distribute," said the man who, after killing a group of ghouls in this territory, moved on to the next area. ZZ. A group was completely annihilated in Zone B. Send a group of Class S ghouls to solve the problem. Also, the cleanup groups must hurry to collect all the ghouls as soon as possible. ZZ. The organization in this place is showing resistance. It will take longer than usual to resolve this issue. ZZ. Wandering ghouls are fleeing to District 14. They must take care of those ghouls on the border of the districts. Black Pearl Building. Private room. How is the operation going? Kenzo asked as his eyes were tinted in blood. District 15 has fallen under our absolute pressure, District 19 has shown resistance, and it is expected that in the next few days, we can take full control of the district. The problem is surveillance. This time we'll be in contact with 5 different districts that will want to know what is happening in our formed districts. What can we do about that? Number 1 asked in a calm tone. We can't rush, this is the maximum our management capacity is currently giving us. But just to maintain appearances, you must take care of providing good entertainment in those districts and prepare the new recruits who should be ready by the end of this month. Kenzo drank red wine while analyzing his words thoroughly. How are the play areas? Kenzo asked again, looking at number 1. We currently have 5 play areas in the districts that will be under our control. The games have been tested and are marvelous. In addition, our hackers are getting ready more and more so that the broadcast can reach the entire country without any problems, number 1 replied while showing images of the games. Once we have control, the games will begin. Kenzo thought this while imagining the faces of everyone seeing the plan he was preparing. Chapter 59, The Path That Can Go Very Wrong. Where are you? Tuka looked at the last message she sent to Kenzo and fell silent. She was in her last class of the day but couldn't help thinking about what she had learned about the man to whom she had given her heart and all her remaining love. She now knew that Kenzo was the leader of the Three-Eyed Crow organization. She also learned more about the man's childhood and why he had issues with his father, despite the latter repenting every day of his life without exception. Tuka understood it. She grasped Kenzo's intention to seek that freedom before being able to live peacefully and without any problems in the future. What will become of our children, friends, and loved ones if we don't fight now? Tuka couldn't fathom it. Although she hated the fact that ghouls ruled, she knew that Kenzo's goal wasn't that. But after pondering it for a few days, she wondered if others would see it the way she did. Of course not. They wouldn't understand what a ghoul seeks and the freedom they long for as a species. The fear of being caught, blamed, killed, and seen as demons by humans torments many. Kenzo might be the light, but the exposure he faced was so great that he would be the number 1 enemy of the country if he couldn't hide his identity well. Could she help him? Tuka knew that Kenzo wouldn't let her openly involve herself in that large-scale fight that was about to unfold. She assumed that if he had been preparing for the past 8 years, he had a method to achieve it, but she didn't know that method, so all she could do was wait. What are you thinking about? Yoriko, Tuka's friend, held her by the shoulder and asked with a sly look. Nothing. Tuka smiled at her friend's mysterious look and asked, is something wrong? I have some experience in romance, and something tells me you're in love. Is that guy an idiot, or did you fight about something? Sasaki, a short and slender girl with reddish-brown hair and grey eyes, who was about to leave school with Tuka, gave her friend a deep look as if she had noticed something. It's nothing like that, he just didn't reply to one of my messages. Tuka murmured unconsciously. Is it that big guy with muscles and broad shoulders? Friend, I never thought you'd like men with big muscles. You certainly have peculiar tastes. I'd also like him to hug me around the waist. Tuka blushed and elbowed Sasaki, then said, it's not like that, he has been wanting to work on some rather dangerous things lately. You have to have more confidence. If he's not replying, it's because he's working or doing important things. If I explain what he does, you're just very in love, my friend. Sasaki, as an expert friend, began advising her friend Tuka once again. Has the location been chosen? Kenzo asked while looking at number 1, who was next to him carrying some documents. Yes, these places were proposed, and in the end, the old auditorium was chosen for the meeting. Number 1 showed Kenzo the meeting place as he sat, monitoring the progress of the missions in Districts 15 and 19 that were still ongoing. It's a good location, so since we proposed the site, we must take care of security and welcome our guests very well. Kenzo nodded as he closed the documents since it wasn't necessary to keep looking. Do you think there will be some issues? They will definitely also propose absorbing our organization. Number 1 wanted to know for his personal satisfaction what Kenzo would do in this situation. It's natural for disagreements to arise, but learning to handle them constructively is essential. If that happens, I'll seek compromise solutions or agreements that allow us to move forward without compromising the fundamental values of each organization. It's true that I'll seek a way for us to unite, but that proposal will be a bit complicated. Kenzo was debating whether to speak with his sister as the leader of the organization or as simply the Master Crow. In one way or another, he believes that if he talks to his sister, they could reach an essential agreement, but a significant disagreement could also arise between both parties. If this happens, Kenzo would have his identity exposed as a ghoul and a leader. But somehow, without having concrete data, he believes that he can achieve significant things as both Kenzo and his sister. If they agree to unite, no one in all the districts would dare to stop them. Only in that way would Kenzo accelerate his situation even more. He could even improve his position and take control of the grand plan he had been preparing for a long time. We need to prepare, we must show our prestige and also our hospitality, Kenzo said as he stood up and walked to the room where the captains would gather for this meeting. Chapter 60, Let me meet the One-Eyed King. It was almost time for the meeting, so Kenzo went down the elevator and headed to the parking lot where his convoy of cars was waiting to take him to the meeting point. However, as he walked into the vehicle, his phone vibrated again, indicating that there was a new message. Tuka, talk to me when you have time. Kenzo looked at this message and turned off his phone. Today, he certainly didn't have time to be distracted because he would possibly be meeting the One-Eyed King, the supposed ghoul who is the leader of the Aogiri organization and one of the most powerful beings. When he entered, there were 5 people around him with crow masks carrying black briefcases. These were his personal guards, trained Class S ghouls. Sir, your mask and gloves. Number 1 was the last to board, handing Kenzo a suitcase along with a tray containing a crow mask, the only one he was known for. While Kenzo put on the mask, he closed his eyes slightly, feeling the darkness around him and becoming even calmer. Wearing this mask gave him a sense of absolute authority, as if a demon lord had taken possession of his body. What is the situation at the meeting point? Kenzo asked with an unusually cold and emotionless voice, exuding a sense of killing intent that naturally oppressed everyone. Everyone felt it, their eyes turned to Kenzo, or rather, to the Master Crow, and that fear turned into worship. The absolute authority of their lord, a ghoul who would change the course of an entire country and, they hoped, the entire world. Number 1, who heard that question, looked at Kenzo and, a little nervously, said, there are 20 elite ghouls in the area. This convoy brought 15 ghouls, so there would be 35 ghouls in the area, including the immediate response group in the tunnels. No one would be there to assist them. Very well. I need everyone to be silent and stay alert. If you see something wrong, don't forget to report it, and if someone tries to attack you, don't forget to kill them, Kenzo said, his gaze lingering for a moment on one of his bodyguards. Understood, Master Crow. Night fell on the auditorium like a cloak of darkness. Stars twinkled above, and the moon, a thin silver scythe, barely illuminated the place. The wind blew gently, carrying unsettling whispers in the dimness. In the distance, the soft crunch of dry branches under the wheels of approaching cars could be heard. The headlights shone with a discreet glow, and the convoy silently advanced towards the auditorium. No sound escaped the group of vehicles, as if they were enveloped in a shared secret. In the auditorium, there were several figures with crow masks and special combat suits designed to maximize the capabilities of ghouls while providing extra protection. Under their trench coats, they carried weapons of formidable caliber. No one seeing them would know they were ghouls, as ghouls are usually wild beasts with barely any fighting skills. They're here, get ready. A voice was heard among the black figures when suddenly they saw hundreds of ghouls dressed in white masks and red trench coats with strange symbols on their backs. In front of the group was a tall man with short white hair and red eyes. He concealed his mouth with a red iron mask and wore a white cloak. I am Tatara, leader of the Aogiri tree. Where is the leader of the crows? Tatara spoke with a deep and cold voice, directly addressing Kenzo, who was heading in their direction. I introduce myself, I am Kiran, and I am in charge of taking you to the meeting point. Kiran extended his hand to indicate to Tatara who he was, followed by several more figures, and the rest of the ghouls dispersed in the surroundings. Very well then. Tatara didn't want to make a fuss about it, so he walked into the auditorium. The Aogiri tree claims to be commanded by the mysterious one-eyed king, a figure surrounded by rumors and invisible to many. The man in front of them could be the mysterious leader of this organization. ZZ. We're here. At that moment, through the radio, Kiran stopped and said, "The Crow Master is here, sir." At that moment, a few hundred meters away, the engines of several vehicles were heard nearby. The drivers of the cars, with somber faces and gestures of complicity, parked their vehicles in a semicircle in front of the auditorium. Inside, the passengers descended with stealthy steps and dark clothing, holding black briefcases. They looked like moving shadows, and finally, the rear door of a vehicle opened. Kenzo put a foot on the ground and then emerged holding a black briefcase like the others. His gaze, covered by a crow mask quite different from his subordinates, certainly caught the attention of the Aogiri tree ghouls. "Greetings, Crow Master." All the ghouls with crow masks greeted him, instinctively making the Aogiri tree ghouls nervous. Only a few S-rank ghouls. That should be Tuka's brother. I guess I should treat him with special respect. Kenzo walked towards Tatara and said in a cold tone, "You arrived particularly early. Shall we go inside?" Tatara nodded, and they walked into the auditorium. As the group gathered in front of the auditorium, a whisper of cautious conversations filled the air. Furtive glances crossed, and eager hands held objects wrapped in cloths. There was an air of conspiracy in the night, a secret purpose that united all those present. Finally, the door of the auditorium opened slowly, and the group rushed inside with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The darkness of the room enveloped them, and the promise of what was to come hung in the air like an expectant sigh. Walking into the auditorium, only Kenzo and number 1 entered from another side. Tatara, Ito and Noro were the only ones who entered to talk about very special things that neither of them knew to what extent the conversation would go. Walking to an open area, Kenzo looked at Tatara and said with a somewhat extravagant hand movement, "Everyone knows me as the Crow Master, the current leader of the Three-Eyed Crow organization. I dominate where the night comes, and my crows are cute, harmless birds. I never thought the Crow Master would have such a strange sense of humor, but that doesn't concern me. I am Tatara, leader of the Aogiri tree." Tatara extended his hand, which Kenzo received with an evaluative look. "You must be intrigued by my sudden invitation, but I have discovered extremely disturbing things that I must resolve as soon as possible, and that doesn't include ghouls. But to succeed, I need total control of my world, and I am sure that the Aogiri tree is the answer to all my questions," Kenzo said as he walked to the side and looked at what he perceived as his sister, his full sister Ito. Chapter 61, A Proposal. Tatara looked at Kenzo in silence, knowing that the man before him was incredibly powerful. He had to stay calm and, for now, maintain control of the conversation if he wanted to come out of this on good terms. A long time ago, a baby crow felt intimidated by the large birds in the sky that wanted to devour it. They looked at it with hunger and the intention to consume its body. A long time ago, I set out not to feel small. I walked the streets of this great city and told myself that I would create something more than a ghoul organization, Kenzo said, raising his hands in the air with a calm smile on his face covered by the crow mask. Tatara remained silent, as if trying to understand Kenzo's words. However, Ito, who seemed to grasp something, said, "Are you saying that humans intimidate you?" Kenzo glanced at Ito and said, "I respect them in a certain way. I don't underestimate them like many other ghouls who only know how to eat and excrete. I am more special. I manage an organization integrated with humans in its entirety. They don't know if they are being fed by a ghoul, if their academy teacher is a ghoul, or if their co-worker is a damn ghoul. Unlike pursuing highly interesting goals but with aggressive methods, it makes me wonder if they will get anywhere." Aogiri tree. "Mr. Crow, be much more specific," Tatara said, somewhat impatiently. "Terrorist organization with a supremacist ideology, am I wrong if that defines your organization, Mr. Tatara?" Kenzo asked directly. "It seems you want to get to a point." Tatara avoided answering that question and instead pointed out something they had all noticed. Kenzo nodded and said, "It's a stupid idea to believe that being a terrorist organization with a supremacist ideology will win against humans. Yes, we are strong, and they can't compare us to humans, but There are more than 7 billion humans, and that number is estimated to increase for the next year. How many ghouls are there in the world? There's no need for you to answer that question. Committing acts of indiscriminate violence, such as attacks on innocent civilians, can alienate the local population and undermine the support that the terrorist organization might have. This can lead to community cooperation with security forces against them. And eventually, you will die, be hunted and exterminated, being the terrorists that you actually are to them. I suppose your struggle is because you want to stop the investigation into our species, the weapons, the technology being created against us as a species continues to increase. I understand and defend what you do. However, you are attacking incorrectly because you don't know what to do. Kenzo snapped his fingers, and the auditorium screen displayed a detailed image of the CCG central base. My goal is to break the will of humans, come to an agreement with them, and create a world where we don't have to feed on each other like dogs. Are you understanding me? Kenzo directed a slight gaze at Tatara. So, why not join us? If you know exactly what we are doing and support our cause, you must be willing to be part of us. Tatara was straightforward with that proposal, still not understanding the true meaning of Kenzo's words. But Ito understood it perfectly. The crow in front of them wants to absorb the Aogiri tree organization. No, this is such a big world that I won't focus only on Tokyo. My businesses are much larger, Mr. Tatara. Drugs, arms trafficking is currently booming because organizations from the CCG departments were focused on capturing and eliminating ghouls, respectively. My dominion is growing, Mr. Tatara. I want to have total control of all ghouls in Tokyo by the end of this year. But I found a serious problem, and that is your organization. It is preventing me from advancing, so that's why I came to propose a merger of organizations. Of course, you would all be under my command. And what makes you think we want to be ruled by a complete stranger? Tatara was furious this time, looking at Kenzo as if he wanted to devour him, so if he didn't respond satisfactorily, the conversation would end here. Kenzo walked towards Tatara and said, I have a better plan for the future, Mr. Tatara, don't you think? Supremacist organizations sometimes have an extreme ideology that disconnects from reality, making their goals unattainable. This can lead to frustration among members and internal collapse. Even if you are doing well now, I will still be losing against humans over and over. Another problem for you is the inability to recruit new members efficiently, which can lead to a decrease in the organization's strength. Radicalization and successful recruitment are essential to maintain and expand a follower base. I've seen that you submit out of fear, so answer me a question, what will happen at the end of your useless fight once you win? Kenzo hinted at the Aogiri tree organization's intentions. No need to do anything more when we win. Tatara didn't have a clear answer since he wasn't the leader of the organization. I recently discovered many things, one of them being that the V organization is heavily involved with the CCG, but I still hesitate to tell you about it, Kenzo said, shaking his head and pointing, but more importantly, do you want to know my plan to conquer an entire city? I don't plan to live peacefully until we are recognized as a species. Japan will be the first country to recognize us not as a problem but as a solution. And if you fail? Tatara had calmed down for a while. I'll be 100 times more brutal than your organization, but unlike you, I know where to strike. Humans are fragile when something other than ghouls begins to torment them. Terrorism, murder, brutal robberies, and kidnappings. I want to see how far Japan is willing to go for its citizens. Kenzo's tone was cold, as if the life and death of many people were of no importance to him. You have very dark ideas in your mind, Mr. Crow. Ito didn't know how to interpret those words, so she didn't say much. Shining Path, a Maoist terrorist organization in Peru, was weakened and largely defeated by the Peruvian government through military operations and the isolation of its leaders. In addition, development programs were implemented to address the underlying causes of the conflict. Kenzo looked directly into Tatara's eyes. In short, eliminating a supremacist terrorist organization involves a comprehensive strategy that combines military, political, security, and social actions. These processes can take time and must be accompanied by efforts to address the underlying causes of radicalization and supremacy. If you're not willing to join me, then, since you should be the one-eyed king, we will have a battle to the death for total control of both organizations. If you're willing to go this far for your goal, I respect that. However, I am also willing to go very far, so I would like to know that I have total control of many more districts in Tokyo. Everyone remained silent at Kenzo's words. A battle to the death with the one-eyed king. The Master Crow must be crazy to challenge such a powerful legend without any preparation or fear in his voice. Only now can they understand how far he is willing to go for his goals. Chapter 62, What if you fail? It's funny, did you call me here just because you want to have control over all of Tokyo? I wonder, what do you hope to achieve after that? Totaro was very intrigued by Kenzo's proposal, so he wanted to extract all the knowledge from this figure in front of him and make a decision at the end of the conversation. Moving both hands to the sides, Kenzo thought briefly and said, fostering open dialogue and empathy among people of different ethnic groups can help build bridges and reduce stereotypes. What I seek is a world where we are not hunted, seen as monsters, and instead seek understanding from humans. That's rubbish. Why do we need them to understand us when we can simply kill those who disagree? Totaro didn't have a favorable opinion of humans, and that was normal. Nowadays, any ghoul could perceive the hypocrisy of humans when it came to matters of concern. Kenzo understood this point, yet he said, in an increasingly diverse and globalized world, there may always be cultural and racial differences. Diversity itself is not a problem, but racism is. Humans have given us a simulation of what would happen years later with our situation if we achieve a treaty. Kenzo knew that the work after that was extremely critical because while it is possible to take significant steps to reduce and combat racism, it must be acknowledged that it can persist in subtle forms or manifest in new ways over time. The fight against racism is a constant commitment that requires the participation of society as a whole to create a more inclusive and equitable world. Still, gaining the trust of ghouls was a real problem because for that, he first needed to get things in order and, in turn, eliminate those who did not want to participate in the establishment of the new world they were about to achieve. At the same time, Kenzo carefully analyzed Totaro, and he couldn't know why, but he believed that this man could understand him perfectly and deduce which of his options would be more successful. It's not enough to eliminate ghoul investigators because their technology keeps increasing constantly due to our pressure and existence. Believe it or not, sooner or later, we will be surpassed by the simple humans we despise every day. How many districts does your organization control? Totaro asked a completely different question than everyone expected. 3. I plan to expand once I take total control in Tokyo. Kenzo showed a bit more openness because he wanted to gain trust. I make you a proposal. I'll give you enough time to show me your plan and results on it. For that, we need to unite as one organization and accept each other as we are. I've heard the reputation of your organization. If you can integrate my ghouls into your group, you will have the first opportunity to seek that world you desire. If you fail to do so in the first 3 years, then it means everything is over, and instead, you will join my plan. Totaro was not a foolish man, he knew the strength of Kenzo and the foolish plan he was trying to carry out. Limiting themselves to a duel to the death meant that one of the two would die as a result, and that might not be the best option for their organization. Kenzo could have the same goals as them, he could be the one to lead all ghouls with a unanimous sense of belonging. If that's what he had been searching for years, it means he must be well prepared and thus have control over each of his movements. Limiting himself to observation could be his best notion, only then could he reach the top and gain all the support of the Three-Eyed Crow organization, which was a job to admire. Not only did they know perfectly how not to be detected by the CCG, but they also financed all their movements through arms trafficking and drug sales. If they do it this way, the way they launder money is through their nightclubs where people come in and out with cash. Kenzo's monopoly was becoming known, and he had slowly become a man to admire. If, somehow, his plan fails, they would not only have all ghouls under Kenzo's command but also financial support that would grant many benefits to the Aojirai tree. It could be said that the One-Eyed King had tasked Totaro with evaluating Kenzo and ensuring that he is indeed the person who could lead them all out of the darkness, a ghoul who understands both humans and ghouls perfectly. Now, there is no doubt that the Crow Master was a genius in the way he assessed certain assumptions. If everything goes as he wants, they might find a much faster way to reach the future they are all seeking. The only way I'll accept is by uniting efficiently so that you adapt to my organization. We'll organize our information and act with an optimal plan. Everything you're doing will take a back seat to concentrate on uniting all of Tokyo into a single organizational entity. The more districts we control, the more sustenance we'll have. There won't be unjustified killings, and everything will be done my way. How do you plan to deal with the CCG? Totaro asked while analyzing the information gathered so far. Once all the districts are united, we'll initiate the distraction plan to begin expanding to other states. The plan we've devised is so extensive that we'll have enough time to take over other districts. It will be straightforward, but I need your complete cooperation, Kenzo said seriously. You know I'll eliminate those who don't follow my rules, including strong ghouls. I don't need strong idiots who don't understand that my plan is structured. Totaro wanted more information, so he said, we'll adapt our information. The ghouls from the Aogiri tree will, I suppose, undergo a test. Considering the time, we'll include low-ranking ghouls and focus on A and S class ghouls. What do you think? We'll do that. When everything is in progress, we'll devise a plan to unite all the assigned leaders from each district and thus have total control over the movements. If we're lucky, we'll finish this in less than half a year. In the meantime, we'll start slowly hitting the CCG investigators. Kenzo lifted the briefcase and pointed, you'll also receive one of these. Ito in the distance asked, what is that? A quinqua, a special one crafted for me, Kenzo said as he walked towards the exit. I'll leave you with a unique way to communicate, we'll start eliminating those who don't join us. Anyone who poses an obstacle will die. Chapter 63, The Plan is to Kill. Both organizations had reached a mutual agreement where traps were set in each of their conditions. If Kenzo loses the possibility of creating the world he was looking for with his own methods and discipline, he would have to obey the orders of the Aogiri Tree organization without exception. This was mainly being carried out because Kenzo's overall plan is difficult to fulfill, and humans could easily lie if engaged in a deep conversation discussing ghoul rights. Therefore, from Tururu's perspective, he was in a much more advantageous position because if they join forces, they can conquer all districts and focus solely on that for now. Of course, they would leave the more problematic districts for the crows while concentrating on the less problematic ones. As per the discussion, all districts in Tokyo are focused on improving the efficiency of trade and being completely under the way the crows move. Expanding businesses was risky because they had to be in the right place and not make any mistakes that would attract police attention. If, for some reason, cases start to accumulate, there would be serious signs of suspicion against them because most businesses were in their names. Of course, he had human pawns who were directors of his companies. They had everything in their name with the sole job of appearing to want to expand nationwide and be one of the companies with the greatest goodwill towards the population. The love gained by their cafes, bakeries, restaurants, and many other industries that donated their profits to the people was memorable for Kenzo. While another hospital opened, there were new food chains with low prices so that people with low resources could eat something warm and delicious. It wasn't something he liked, but Kenzo needed to portray an image that he would need later. How's the situation in District 19? Kenzo asked inside a car on the way home. All the issues plaguing the safe zones have been resolved, we've taken control of everything for now, but we'll need time to stabilize the entire area and start taking over businesses that can operate at night, Number 1 replied quickly while reviewing the report on his smart tablet. This was expected from Kenzo's perspective. Now that they had a much deeper alliance with the Aogiri tree, he needed to establish a new plan considering all the variables. First, completely eliminate the weeds in the Aogiri organization, replace the district leaders under his name, and move them to other districts with the excuse that they need new leaders to take on different roles. Do you have a list of the most dangerous ghouls in the districts that will eventually be under our dominion? Kenzo asked this question while toying with a pistol. We have it classified, although they are powerful, they lack a chain of command and can be easily replaced. Tokyo is large but still just one big place, we need to have complete control of ghouls as we do in this place. Kenzo's ideas were far beyond any regular person, and his businesses, which were extremely subtle, were the most crucial to finance his future union with humans. A path of blood or diplomatic unity. In any case, both them and Japan benefit from a halt to the troubles and pretending that everything is fine. It's like a bank, you can say you back the bills with gold bars, but in the end, you'll never have that gold you claim to actually have. It could be fake gold, painted gold, or plastic gold, no one will notice. If they suddenly announce that there is a way to deal with ghouls and propose that to humans, will they still be afraid? It's impossible to stop eating human flesh, but as is happening in District 20, no one will realize where ghouls are actually feeding. They can announce that they have prepared a special meal for ghouls and that these creatures should stop hunting. This way, ghouls can live in peace, and humans can remain ignorant. Are you sure you want to go to South Korea for the drug business this time? Number 1 asked while finishing reading the report. I need to do it. If I want to support that Korean, I need to make sure he can unite all the gangs in the country into one organization and give him the power to prevent betrayal, Kenzo said, thinking, I also need to make sure his movements are monitored, and by then, he'll have insurance in South Korea in case things go wrong in this country. He wasn't sure he would win, he might make a deal with humans, but they are full of surprises, so he had to keep an open mind to an infinite number of possibilities. If he blindly trusted his plan and it failed, he would undoubtedly die. Now that he has Tuka by his side, he needed at least to have an extra life insurance for both of them and thus have the chance to start a new life. How are the envoys to other places in Japan? Kenzo suddenly asked, interested. The organizations are growing slowly as reported. Only when this place is complete can we expand to other locations and start the plan. Number 1, who was aware of many of the organization's issues as the Master Crow's secretary, replied. Beeb. Beeb. Kaneki-ken is awake. Change of plans, let's go to the hospital immediately. Kenzo by then had already removed his mask and gloves, appearing to be just another businessman. His penetrating gaze focused on what he would do with this boy, who seemed to be giving him some trouble. Is he really that important? Number 1 asked, still not understanding what Kaneki meant to Kenzo. Don't misunderstand me, perhaps he can be my perfect shadow in Tokyo. I'll have to train him, but he'll likely achieve good things, Kenzo said, thinking about the importance of Kaneki. He can be a symbol because he's just like me, a human turned into a ghoul. I wonder which path he'll choose and if he'll be like me. As time goes on, Kaneki will become more ghoul. If he can adapt and thrive, he can be the symbol Kenzo needs to complete his plans. Kenzo was interested in knowing if Kaneki is like him as he makes decisions. Will he truly accept it, or will he succumb to the pain? What will motivate him to survive? Kenzo and even the crows couldn't provide that feeling Kaneki needs to advance as a ghoul. His dead family doesn't help either. The only thing he has is his best friend, who might be the key needed to control him a bit. We need him, the organization needs him because he will be the greatest weapon we use against humanity, making them feel pity, seeing their morale crumble, and blaming humanity for those crimes. Kenzo had everything in his hands to start the game.
Thanks for listening.